but does decide to go to Nineveh. He's like, okay, I'll go preach if you want me to go preach. I mean, I can just picture him being really salty about it.
Right. I just come out of the ocean.
Yeah, for sure. So, so he does go and he preaches to them and they repent and they get saved. So it's a great story with a happy ending. However, Jonah, it took him those 3 days, to change his mind and to be obedient to what God was wanting him to do. For me, it took 9 years. So I say I make Jonah look obedient.
Right.
But the good thing about this story, maybe the best thing, is God never gives up on us. I'm a firm believer in my own life experience. No matter how far we run, no matter what we get into, no matter how stinky we are, like, God doesn't give up on us. And so he didn't give up on me. And it got so bad, Chris, that every sermon that I heard the preacher preach for months was on trusting God. Now,
and she was preaching directly to you, right?
That's exactly right.
I feel like that a lot.
Yes, I just knew that that message was for me, that I just wasn't trusting God enough. And so I finally went to the preacher, my preacher, Dr. Rob, and I told him that I felt like I was being called to do something more in the church. It was probably the most inarticulate thing ever. I just stumbled around the whole thing because I didn't want to say preach.
Right.
I just said something more, and I left it. Well, he did. He called me to see if I would teach a Sunday school class. And so I said yes.
And at that point, did you have enough knowledge to even begin thinking about teaching?
Oh, no. Let me tell you, this was the ambassador class at Paris First. And these were well-studied, the mature matriarchs and patriarchs of the church, like the people that had been there. And
you're a novice, and you're just getting started.
Right.
You've been to Sunday school, but you've been to church, but
Sure, but thinking that I was in any place to kind of lead or teach that group, so I really explained to them I was going to be the facilitator.
Just a facilitator, huh?
Yes. The thing is, God continued to use that and to help build me and grow me and help me learn how to teach and to lead just even that class. And everybody was so supportive. People would come up to me. Now, you talk about people speaking on behalf of God. Like, I felt like they were doing that. They would come up and say, "You've missed your calling. You should have been a preacher."
Wow.
I know, just out of the blue. And so it began with some of those affirmations to give me a little more confidence.
Right.
That maybe I'm not mishearing this. Like, maybe there is something to it. Maybe I should take another step. Well, I decided one Sunday, I only preached one Sunday, taught one Sunday a month for that ambassador class.
Okay.
So it was one of the Sundays I had just taught the week before, and my children wanted to go to my home church, back to Henry. So we loaded up. It was very, very cold. Went to the church, and when we got there, the preacher was not there.
Uh-oh.
He was on a mission trip, and nobody had, I guess there was a breakdown in communication, but nobody was there to preach. And the people were just going to come and sing some songs and go home. And the whole time I'm sitting there with this stirring inside me, going, you could do this. Like, you have this. I had a lesson that I had prepared the week before at my house. And I'm super close, within walking distance, actually, of Henry.
Okay.
Church. So I walked out of the church, ran to my house to get the book because I just couldn't get rid of this feeling like it might not be great, but it'd be better than nothing. Like,
right.
They'd at least go home with something. So I ran to the house and realized my lesson was in my car, which I keep locked. So I couldn't get it. So I kind of was like, okay, I'm off the hook. Well, I ran back, and running, that's really loosely for speedy walking. But I got back, and even with the speedy walking, I was out of breath. And my oldest daughter's like, Mom, what are you doing? And I said, I just was going to get my Sunday school lesson out. I thought maybe I could do that for them. And she's like, I'll go get it. Oh, shucks, man. Okay, so she goes and uses my key, brings it back, and I get up there. Now, you have to understand, this is my home church.
Right.
So there was not nearly the pressure because they love me, whether I get up there or don't. They love me if I'm an epic failure or if I knock it out of the park. So there was some pressure, but not anything that was overwhelming by any stretch. So I got up there and I shared that lesson to the best of my ability that Sunday. And they were all so kind and so supportive and like, oh, you've missed your calling. Like, they kept saying this into my life. Well, lo and behold, about a week later, there was a knock on my door. And it was the pastor from Henry, Mr. Tom. And he came to my door, and I remember standing there, just like I remember as clearly as anything. I was standing there at the door, and he said, hey, I hear you're trying to put me out of a job.
Gunning for his job, huh?
Yeah. So my daughters were sitting on the couch, and he asked, have you ever thought about taking lay speaking classes, which was kind of something that people in the church would do, not on a pastoral path, not
right.
leading to preaching per se, but lay speakers sometimes would fill in for a preacher if they were out.
Okay.
So he said, have you ever thought about lay speaking? And so for the first time in front of anyone else, I finally admitted that yes, I felt like I was supposed to be doing this. And I explained to him, not preaching, by the way. I didn't use that word, but lay speaking. And that perhaps I would have done it before now. Here comes the excuses. But they only offer the class for lay speaking in Henry County one time a year in September on a Saturday.
So you got to learn everything you need to learn learn everything you need to know about lay speaking in one session, one day out of the year.
Yes.
Wow.
And so the problem was, here's my excuse. My daughter plays soccer. So every September we're at soccer matches and I can't miss a soccer game. So that's why I had not done it all these 9 years and all, in the time before.
9 years of not doing it's been over a soccer game. Okay.
So he said, well, I'm going to check with Dr. Rob, your preacher, and just let him know that we've had this conversation and see if there are any lay speaking classes. Well, Dr. Rob emailed me and said, hey, I found out that you're right. The lay speaking courses are in September. And of course, this was, January. So it was going to be a while before those classes were opening up. And a couple of weeks later, I got another email from Dr. Rob saying, hey, guess what? The Purchase District is having, they're going to host lay speaking classes in March, and you can go and do the lay speaking classes in March. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Okay, well, if God's going to open the door, I'm going to walk through it. So he made a way when there seemed to be no way to go ahead and take this lay speaking class. So I went to Mayfield, and theirs was held over a series of 3 or 4 weeks. It was a weekly thing that you would go and do in the evenings instead of one long day. So I took those lay speaking classes and then took an advanced lay speaking class. And so I made a deal with God. Hey, God, here's the deal. I will fill in for a small membership church ever so often. Like if they need somebody, that's what I could do.
Now, you were doing this at the same time as banking?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. And so I was still doing my full-time job and agreeing to God that I would give him this little small part to speak if somebody was on vacation. If a preacher was on vacation, I would fill in for them one Sunday. And so anyway, it's it's really beautiful the way he just kept opening doors for me. And I began lay speaking at different places, but still very reserved on the time that I would give of myself and the commitment that I would make, still trying to move forward with my plan. And that I've learned never really works.
Right.
Works
now,
out.
you put it off for 9 years. Now, how long have you been doing this?
Yes. So finally in 2013, I really knew there was nothing to do but just say yes. And I moved into, they went ahead and sent me to licensing school to become a licensed local pastor.
Okay.
And I completed that in 2014, and they appointed me to a part-time church. Once again, I'm explaining to God that I'll do this part-time. And I think that's, I mean, there are some
now,
pastors.
at this point, you're thinking realistically, I need to work and make this money,
Well,
but
so,
this is my calling at the same time, but this isn't really making my money.
yes.
That's a reasonable thing to be concerned with.
Absolutely. I think we are all mindful that it does take money to pay bills and to
Yes,
make
absolutely.
the world go round and all that stuff. And we think about those things and we analyze those things.
This is where your trust in God comes in.
And yeah, that word trust just is a continual thread throughout my life, is this reminder, because
Right.
it's easy to move to a place of fear or worry and or control.
Yeah, that's the enemy right there.
But yeah, so my husband and I, we were on the same page about this part-time ministry.
We're talking about Bo Walker.
Yeah.
Bo Walker.
He's been so supportive. He used to tell me, I wouldn't make a great pastor's wife at all, but he's wrong. He's a wonderful partner in ministry, and it's really a calling for both of us, even
I
if
believe that.
he doesn't confess it that same way. But yeah, it's beautiful to be able to do this together.
Right.
So I served part-time along with my full-time job from 2014 till, the next thing I want to share with you is kind of how I moved from part-time to full-time.
Yes.
So I was really enjoying a lot of success at the bank, if you will. Everything was going so beautifully. My boss was retiring. I was on senior management. They'd put me on the board of directors, all these beautiful pay raises, all the things that you think equal success.
Yeah. That's what we're conditioned to believe.
Correct. All these things that sort of feed your ego or your pocketbook or all the things. And so in 2019, and this would have been in the spring, I had been talking to my DS over the last year about maybe I'm being called to full-time ministry. And so in 2019, the DS said, I think I've got a church. It's not in this county, but I've got, two churches. And so think about if you want to go full-time at these churches. And he told me which churches they were. And I actually kind of went and checked them out, not inside, but just drove around. But my husband and I did, thinking about this. And the truth is, we both were a little bit nervous about making that transition.
Yeah, I could imagine.
That particular appointment was not going to have health insurance, and I was the one that had the health insurance for both of us. So There was that concern. So my husband changed jobs so that I would be covered with health insurance if I took this. And so all those things we started to put into motion, but I kept going back and forth with the DS because I couldn't think about, what if I have to leave the church where I am? I love the two churches where I am. I love these people. What if things fall apart at the bank? I mean, our
A lot
pride
of what ifs.
really